Where are you from?
Palo Alto, California.
All right, and what did this place used to look like? About 10 years ago or so.
10 years back in the dinosaur days when we moved in here in 1984.
Yeah.
It was pretty built out when we moved in here, so it's more or less the same in the residential areas. However, the downtown and well, we have two downtowns here. They've really, really changed. It used to be downtown Palo Alto. At 5 o'clock, it was dead. I mean, we said you could bowl on University Avenue. I mean, and when you have no idea. Right? I mean, it was like that when we were students, but we came back and we said, God, this place, could you bring water when you come back?
Yes, I'll bring some water.
Anyway, so it really has changed because now everybody who's anybody not from Palo Alto comes to downtown Palo Alto on the weekends. They just roll in. I used to work at City Hall, and if you stayed past 5 o'clock, you know, the people who wanted the good parking spaces were all coming in. And if sometimes I would work late till 7, and it was just amazing. And all the people in Palo Alto have no idea. I mean, do you ever go downtown?
Not unless I have
Exactly. But do you go downtown to Palo Alto?
Yeah. I always
Because now
go.
it's a happening place. And if you are in the single scene, I mean, I would see it in the parking lot. All right, so that was 5 years ago. I retired last year. So I'm not observing it now.
Yeah.
All right.
How else do you think the area has changed, maybe in respect to the flora and
There's actually
fauna?
a chair over there.
The flora and the fauna of
Yeah.
Palo Alto.
Yes. Have you noticed a difference in the hills, the color, or anything like
Well,
that?
this year compared to any other year, it's green. You know.
Yeah.
Recording an interview here.
Okay, so you mean natural flora and fauna?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say people are paving over
Well,
more
people
of
are-
their
people are-
own house lots. But part of that has to do with the drought, right? And so there's much less lawn. This is really good, you know. But what they replace it with is a lot of pavement. All right, so flora and fauna, like we have the Baylands and we have the hills, the Foothill Park,
Yeah.
our parks. I can't say that I've noticed a great deal of change in the flora and fauna, natural. You're the birder. I mean, I will notice. I will say yes, and a lot more crows.
I would say there's one very major difference is that mountain lions were totally unknown in my childhood in this community. I mean, they were known to have existed in the past, and it was said that there were some in San Mateo County, but nobody had ever seen them. And now they're back. So
They were down.
Yeah. So that's one big difference in the fauna.
So predators, and that's because of the deer, right?
Well,
That's their predating
that and
farm.
the fact that they can't get depredation permits and things of that sort. And the idea was to get rid of the mountain lions at one point because they were dangerous and are thought to be dangerous, and now not so much.
And now there's actually, what didn't we read today? There's a bald eagle family in Palo Alto.
The article in the paper said there are a lot more eagles in the bay in this area now.
But was it not talking about something in Palo Alto, or did I imagine
no,
that?
it was.
Yeah. So in historic, before they were declared to be endangered, they had not been seen for decades.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were 1915 somewhere up north. Did you read this article?
No.
No. Okay.
Now I'm gonna have to.
Yeah. No, it was Mercury News. I'm sure it's elsewhere too, but it was really exciting, and they were talking about moving into in the redwood tree by an elementary school. and so they and nesting there. So these kids were having this amazing experience, and they're talking about that is a success story in bringing it back. They had to bring the breeding pairs down from Alaska or northern Canada or something like that. So anyway,
That's great.
so that's a positive thing.
Well, in the Baylands has been the restoration of the marshland has helped a lot in terms of the waterfowl in the area.
But where I think we have a lot fewer songbirds and a lot more, and crows have displaced a bunch of whatever used to be around. I remember lots more
Send those crows
doves.
back to Los
I never
Angeles.
remember crows many, many years ago. There were ravens, but not crows. And now we've got virtually all crows, and I haven't seen a raven or heard a raven for a long
Some
time.
down in the Baylands, but
Yeah.
not too many.
Yesterday afternoon, we were driving down El Camino. I looked up and there were crows harassing a raptor. And it was either a red tail. I didn't know that there were bald eagles. It had a light tail, but it was very high. Anyway, they were dive bombing, how they do. They just harass any
They work
raptor.
together to take it.
Yeah, there were about 7 of them.
Yeah.
And they were just chasing this guy, and he was swooping and, avoiding. But
So what are some activities that you used to do here, and what activities do you do here now? Has there been a change?
When we moved into Palo Alto in 1984, one of the reasons we moved was so that we would be able to do biking. So we were early adopters on that one, as far as people in their 30s and 40s. That was a conscious choice, so that we would avoid the need for car commuting. My husband works on the Stanford campus,
Yeah.
and I worked there for a while. And I remember when my kids were growing up, we lived across the street from an elementary school, and I don't think any of my neighbors actually drove their kids that one block. It would be crazy, but there were people who lived 5 or 6 blocks away who, because they thought the traffic was so bad, they were driving their kids to school through this signalized intersection, therefore making it really bad for the kids who were walking and biking. And so we started this thing about encouraging more people to walk.
Yeah.
Whenever someone is promoting that, then there's a real reduction of the congestion around the schools. And this is not answering your question, but we ended up, so those of us who started this just kept on working, and I never dreamed, my kids, it was like a 10-minute bike to Pali. It was like, no, we're not driving.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
If it's pouring rain and you have
Hey,
to
Ryan.
and
See
you
ya.
have to carry something delicate, okay, this time, but you'll pay. And it was just like, you're not getting driven to school.
Yeah, I think it seems like that's starting to come back. I know students at Stanford will drive to a different place on the campus. I'm like, well, you could easily bike or walk straight there.
Yeah, well, I think, because I have lived in this is the house I grew up in, believe it or not. And so, I've seen a lot of changes. I mean, so many that it almost is irrelevant in a way, because when in the 40s,
Everybody that had changed.
Activities. So what
driving-
activities do you do now that are a little different?
Okay, so I was going to say that other people in the 80s, as I watched, a lot of other folks were getting 2-3 cars and just driving there. And when my sons were in Pali, there were all these boys and girls who turned 16 and got a BMW. This was what was the This was the first boom. You know,
What year was this, just out of curiosity?
what? So he graduated 2000. So right before 2001. Wasn't that?
1998.
Yeah,
Around.
yeah, it was big. So I noticed that those folks were very different than the Palo Altans that I had known. They didn't come into our, we weren't in the right type of neighborhood. College Terrace was sort of
I don't know where you've been or what you're
isolated, you know.
Yeah.
So
Talked to Ryan.
we didn't have to put up with
Came
them
back down, and I
that
had
much. But now they're moving in. Anyway,
Do you do any other? Do you still get to bike like you wanted to?
oh yeah.
Yeah, you
No,
still
I
bike a
kept
lot.
that up. So what did I stop doing?
Or is there any new activities?
So we used to take our families up in, for picnics up in the dish area. In those days, you could
Where?
to the
up
dish.
to the dish.
So and one thing,
open seats here. Or...
Sure, absolutely.
there were homemade swings that you could swing out over a ravine. You know.
Is there enough chicken? Or?
Did you ever do that with your kids?
Well, I know I
Yep.
got a whole
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did.
And the
Oh, really?
students would go up there and do cow tipping.
Let's see how
Oh
much.
no.
Do they still do this?
No.
I have no idea. You know, but I did not do that.
glad you
But
came.
anyway,
Oh,
so
yes.
in
Wow,
the
I made it.
80s and early 90s, we
Close to
really
that.
enjoyed that. That's not something you can do, and it was controversial
here
when
for a little
they
bit.
closed
Yeah.
the dish. But I will say, when we live right off of Sanford Avenue, and all those runners just running straight up the hill, Cardiac Hill they call it.
Good reason.
Were you one of those?
That every
I
Tuesday.
run it once a week.
And Don Kennedy and Bill Durham and
I run it too every week.
no, but you don't run straight up.
Oh no, it's
over-
different.
They had no paved paths, so
Ah.
everybody was running all over the hill.
Uh-huh.
And if it was wet, they would just get slightly out of whatever the other one was, and it was a disaster. And that has grown back, and the coyotes have come back, and all sorts of you saw
Yeah.
nothing, no wildlife at all when you were in this area. So it was wonderful that we could experience it and climb up a hill and look over the bay, but it was not managed properly, and so Stanford took a lot of flack. And not allowing dogs in there, so it was really flack. But that was a good thing.
Yeah.
It was interesting, though, that they paved. You have these paved roads now that you're allowed to stay on.
It would
When
be
you can't
nice
get
if
off.
it were DG. I know, yeah, right. And those of us who used to wander across,
Yeah.
It was amazing.
complain about the lack of being able to having that choice. But given how many people are going there.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.